is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening.
Good afternoon and welcome to Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis. Late Patti Fink is down in Austin. Now, she went to see the opening of the legislature. I'm going to, but she went in order to be on time. She left yesterday. I'm leaving tomorrow. I'll be there before her.
And I'm sure you will.
I will. I'm guaranteeing it.
So she left yesterday. The swearing-in is not till tomorrow.
No, till Tuesday.
Till Tuesday? Oh, I thought it was tomorrow.
No, it's Tuesday. I'm going down tomorrow. I'm going to stay with my father-in-law, who lives down in Austin, and that way I can just go right down to the Capitol at 9 o'clock so I can get parking. The swearing is until noon. It's hard to get parking around the Capitol on swearing-in day. I've been there before, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing people who've been on our show.
Yep.
Eric Johnson, Raphael Anchia,
Julie
Johnson, Jessica Gonzalez, Mary Gonzalez, Celia Israel. So lots of friends who are getting sworn in. I'm looking forward to it. So, and of course, 5 golden lesbians. First time. That really is historic. It is New Year's. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy
and for
New
all
Year.
of you Trump doubters, this is 2019. That is the highest year that it has ever been. It is higher than even when Obama was president. Now, for next year, do you know what I want to see for when the ball drops? I want to see Barbara Walters introducing it. You know why?
Oh, yeah.
So that she can say, I'm Barbara Walters, and this is 2020. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be. I saw that.
I mean,
Maybe she'll come out of retirement just for that.
1 minute.
Yeah, 1 minute.
I just need 1 minute of her time, but she has to do that. Our guest today is David Murray. He is the director of the School of Music at Butler University in Indianapolis. So what does that have to do with anything? Nothing at all. David's a friend of mine. We've known each other 30 years, something like that?
Close to 30 years.
Now, he used to work at West Texas State University. His husband lived here in Dallas, so he'd come in weekends and he spent the summer here. David and I became good friends. Now he is down here once a year because the International Bass Society is based here in Dallas. Who knew? Well, I knew. But did you know that?
I did not know that.
We're actually the International Society of Bassists, which makes us the International SOBs. But we don't. We just call it ISB. But we are headquartered here.
So David comes for this meeting. It's always the first weekend of the year. Welcome, David.
So, the ISB, we represent about 35 different countries around the world, and we have members, all over the place. We run a convention. Can you imagine a convention for just bass players? But we do that every 2 years. This coming June will be in Bloomington, Indiana, which is the home of Indiana University, and only an hour away from my home right now, so that's convenient. And we usually see about 1,400 bass players from all over the world come to these conventions. They've been growing over the years.
Is this the same thing that was at TCU last year?
No, the one at TCU was not an ISB convention, but it was put on by the bass teacher, Lou Wan, who's at TCU. He teaches there. So he invited some people from all over. It wasn't quite as big, but he still had a really good turnout. And I performed on a concert with my mentor, Gary Carr, who was here. We did master classes, and we have a big performance on that. I think it was that Saturday night was the big highlight performance. And so that was really fun because everybody was really jazzed for Gary. Gary Carr is probably not a known name too much outside the music world, but he is considered the best bass player in the world. And he's the only bass player in history that's had a career as a soloist. Most bass players do some solos and have another day job. His primary job was as a soloist, and he's semi-retired. but he still travels quite a bit and performs quite a bit. So it was great to have him at TCU and great playing with him. And because he's such a big name, when he'd already done some performing already, some pieces, and then I came out on stage to join him for this one piece together with his husband, who is the pianist, and I walked into his play, and the electricity in the room was like, whoa, my God, it was like really big. So we walked in together and we played. And the people were, I mean, the whole audience was mostly bass players, and so nice, so wonderful. But I think you were there, David.
I was there.
Yeah,
I was there. It was a lot of fun.
And my husband's family was there, which was really fun. His brother lives in Fort Worth.
So why are all these bass players gay?
They're not all gay, but they seem to not care that we are.
I thought it was just
of course, playing bass is fabulous anyway, so...
So what goes on at a bass convention?
Well, a lot of people perform. Some people that you might have heard the name, but you didn't hear them perform before. They're really quite a few layers to the convention, because we have the performances, and some are really big names that are well known, and some are people that are just up and coming. There are a lot of lectures about certain topics, bass-related things. Some special sessions, for instance, some of the orchestral basses will get together and they'll play through some orchestral passages, and somebody will say, well, this is the way I do this, and this is the way I've done this, and this conductor wanted it this way, and this conductor wanted it this way. So it's kind of interesting to know for that, because a lot of bass players, young bass players who want a career in music, would be auditioning for an orchestra, so they have to know how these things work and get all this input. We also have competitions. There are several competitions. Every in-between year, because we always run these conventions on the odd number of years, in the in-between years, we have a composition competition. And so people write music for bass. It can be solo bass, bass ensembles, bass with a small ensemble, like a chamber piece. And they pick a winner, and then those pieces are winners in each of those categories. And then those people play at the next convention, so they actually have a performance of the winning pieces, which is great. We also have live performance competitions for students that are 14 and under, and there's nothing cuter than like a little 12, 14-year-old bass player just whipping stuff off. I mean, the stuff they're playing now, 50 years ago, was college-level material, and now we've got these young kids whipping through it like nobody's business. It's amazing. And then we have for 15 to 18-year-old, and then we have a solo competition, the adult solo competition, which I was fortunate to win in 1988, and I don't want to do the math on that, but I think that was about 30 years ago.
Well, when did you start playing the bass?
I started playing when I was 12.
Wow.
And we have bass players starting now as young as 3 years old. They play little bitty instruments, and you know they're only about they're only about 3 feet high, and the instrument's only like 3.5 feet. But by the time they're 13, they've been playing 10 years.
Yeah.
They can get around the instrument. They know what's going on. So you don't have to be the age that I was to start anymore. And I've seen some of those kids grow up. They've gone to Juilliard, and then they're already in careers. It's incredible. I guess they've been around long enough to see students really grow and become professionals. So,
wow.
And then we have orchestra competitions. We have, it'd be like an audition is for an orchestra, and the prize is actually to play in a major orchestra for a week. And then we have a jazz competition, because bass includes everything. And then we also have an instrument makers competition. So people bring a new instrument, and it's judged by 2 different panels, one that does the sort of construction issues, and
you're listening to
judges that
Knon
also do the tone
89.3
quality. So there's all of that going on as well. So there's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot going on, apparently.
Yeah, it's great. It's just bass nerd love for the whole week, and we just really love it.
You know, I don't know. I grew up as a theater kid, and some of my friends were in the band and choir, and one of my best friends to this day, he is a viola player.
Oh yeah, good.
And he has his day job, but sometimes, when he's out of work, he can just pick that viola player up and go get a job somewhere playing weddings, something. He's always employed. Is it pretty much the same thing with bass players?
Yeah, I mean, and especially if you're willing to be a little bit flexible, because there's a bass in every kind of ensemble. And some of our members also play electric, and so you can play in a band, any kind of band. We have classical, we have jazz, bluegrass, rock, I mean, everything. Plus all the new styles. I mean, when you talk about classical music, it really embraces a wide range of different kinds of styles, and the new modern music and new techniques and the way you play the instrument. It's maybe for a select few people, but there is a market for that.
So when you record our theme song for us, you'll play it in a classical style.
Yes, and I'll dress like Donna Reed too.
I think
so.
You
We'll
should.
take a picture of it with the Donna Reed with the bass. It'd be fabulous.
I think that'll be perfect. I think actually our theme song, I've heard you play it any number of times.
Right.
I think our theme song on bass would be perfect.
You've given me inspiration now, so I'm gonna be back in the practice room tomorrow. I've got lots of work to do, so yeah, I should start looking that up.
David has a number of recordings that have, topped the charts, the bass charts.
Yes.
I want to play one of the things. What are we playing?
Starting with Vocalese?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is that?
Well, Vocalese was a piece by Sergei Rachmaninoff. Now, the story is apparently he wrote it for Serge Koussevitzky, who was a bassist and conducted the Boston Symphony for many years, Russian bass player. And apparently at the last minute they had some kind of tiff. And so Rachmaninoff didn't dedicate it to the bass, but originally it was supposed to be for bass, and this rendition is supposed to be just that.
And this is you.
Yes, this is me playing with piano. It's with piano. Vocalese as a vocal piece is without text. It's just on la, so there's no story or anything behind it. But it's very beautiful. Rachmaninoff, very romantic, very lyrical.
All right.
And
let's take a listen.
Hold on a second. It's...
I'm trying to get the right CD in there. So,
Yeah,
and it's quite short. It's just a couple minutes long.
And I think this is what it cued right, because it wasn't reading it right.
It's track 2 in the thing.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
This is Knon, though.
Yeah.
Let's play it and see how it... And Josh just said, and I'll turn you on. And that was David Murray, who's our guest today. David is the director of the School of Music at Butler University in Indianapolis. One of the biggest schools of music, if not in the country, in the Midwest.
Well, actually, IU is the huge one. We're pretty decent size for a private university, and there's several music schools in Indiana. But as far as private schools in Indiana, we're certainly the biggest, and I think a very strong program, which is great. So taking over the directorship was a bit, I wouldn't say a no-brainer, but it was fairly easy to say yes to because we're in a good place. You know, financially things are sound. We've got great motivated students. The administration, upper administration is very helpful and very supportive. And I know the faculty. I've been on the faculty for over 20 years. So the faculty is great, very supportive, very easy to work with. So
we just have a couple of minutes before we have to take a break. Just tell us quickly, how did you get into music yourself? While the music was on, you said your mother still plays the piano. She's 91. Yeah. She still plays the piano a little bit. Yep. So was it your mother's influence that...
Actually, my parents were both musicians. My dad died over 10 years ago now, but both parents were musicians. My grandmother, my dad's mother, was a voice teacher. So I grew up with music. And my dad, we tried this and that, and of course we sang all the time as kids. But my dad came home one day and he said, "You're starting bass lessons in 2 weeks." I was 12, gangly, picking on my sister, although in her defense she could fight back no problem. She's pretty scrappy. And so I picked up the bass, and the minute I had it in my hands, I went, "Oh." And a light bulb went off. I went, "This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life." I just knew instantly.
Really?
It was that easy.
Wow.
And I tried other things, and nothing had the same effect. It was kind of the same thing when I met my husband. It was like, okay,
this is the one.
You are the one. And it was that easy.
Oh, nice.
And you're still deciding, Lerone, what you want to do when you grow up.
I'm trying. I'm trying. And I'm beating my head against the wall like, I got to do something with my life.
And I've just kind of decided, okay, so I've been doing this show for 30 years. Maybe that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, you're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 Knon FM. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis. The late Patti Fink is trying to be early for the opening of the legislature, so she's in Austin this week. She'll be back with us next week. We'll be back with more Lambda Weekly right after this.
This is Rollins Gilliland, and I'm listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3, and darn glad to be doing it.
And this is Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet, and I'm losing my voice. Our guest today
I was going to say, you want me to go on?
Go ahead.
Our guest today is David Murray. He's in town because of the bass convention?
Planning the convention, I'm part of the International Society of Bassists. I'm on the board, and one of our duties as a board is to put on a convention every 2 years.
Gotcha.
So we're planning that, and also taking care of our organization to keep it up and running and solvent and all that.
And just before the break, we heard one of David's pieces. That was lovely. Seriously, I really like that. And I was telling him that my husband plays the piano as well as the saxophone, so he would really love this piece. Your husband's also a musician, right?
No, my husband's not. My parents
Your parents are. Okay.
I mean, my dad was. He's been dead for 11 years now or something. My mom still is. 91, still living on her own, still plays her piano. And I was home for a few days just between Christmas, New Year's, and she'd sit down and just play a little bit. It just keeps her happy, keeps her fingers moving.
That's awesome.
I mean, music is great on so many levels. I mean, emotionally, of course. I'm really happy I'm a musician because there's a lot of, things that get very frustrating and complicated in life. And it's very calming to be able to do something that sort of releases all that energy in a very positive direction. And as a listener, too, it's so nice to be able to engage in something that just crosses every category of human existence, and everybody can enjoy the same thing together. There's something really, really wonderful in that, very human in that.
So music is obviously a family affair.
Oh,
with your
yes.
Family. But what about your sister?
Well, my sister played violin until she graduated from high school, and that was it. She's a banker. She's very smart, and she comes to concerts.
Oh, awesome.
She came to my Carnegie concert back in, when was that, 1990.
So we're going to have you explain, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? I know how to get there. From Central Park, you go down 7th. Yeah, it's 57th to 7th. Do you know, I was looking it up today. I learned the origin of that joke. Apparently, Jascha Heifetz, who's a violinist, was walking down 57th Street, and somebody stopped him and asked him where Carnegie Hall was. But she said, "How do you get to Carnegie Hall?" And that's where his retort was, "Practice, practice, practice." How did you get to Carnegie Hall?
Practice, practice, practice. Well, part of it too. I mean, you have to practice. You have to work. You have to put the time in. You just have to woodshed. You just have to do all of that. But that will not alone get you to Carnegie Hall. You have to get out and get exposure. And one of the ways to get exposure is to enter competitions, which on the one level, I absolutely hate competitions because music is not a competitive sport. You know, everybody can play, everybody can enjoy. There's all different levels, there's all different styles, but you know, you start putting people against each other, that's kind of not what music is. But on the other hand, if you can win a competition or get noticed in a competition, that can help further your career, which is not such a bad thing. And as a competitor, if you get feedback and it helps to improve your playing, then that's also a really good thing. So with the Bass Society, we have, as I mentioned before, those competitions, and I think one of the most important things, even more than winning, is getting the comments and the feedback from the judges so that you kind of know where you stand, you know maybe what you need to do more. And of course, any competition, you're probably going to bring your A game, so it really keeps pushing you to be the best player you can be. And back in 1988, I entered one of the ISB's competitions, a solo competition, and I won it. It was in LA that year. And so then the prize for that, only that competition that year, was that it would be a Carnegie Hall recital in Carnegie Recital Hall, which is sort of the smaller hall off to the side of the big hall. Well, I played in the big hall too. That's another story. But the recital was in Carnegie Recital Hall. And so that was a good competition to win just because of that. And people came in, my sister came in, David came in, other friends from New Orleans came in, and people from Toronto. So it was really, really fun to walk out and just see a packed house and know that lots of my friends and family and stuff were there, and it was really fun.
My father came too.
That's right, I did meet your father that time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's you leave with some serious bragging rights.
Yeah.
I won a competition at Carnegie Hall.
They say winning isn't everything, and that's true. But when you do win something, you can check that box off on your resume, and that does put another feather in your cap. So as you're going through, building your career and pushing yourself forward, it's like, well, you can say you're the winner of this, or you've accomplished that. And a couple of years ago, I got a prize from the Bass Society, which was probably the biggest honor I think I've ever received. And they said I was recognized for my distinguished service as a solo bass player, and they only give that out to one person every 2 years.
Okay, now that is impressive.
And that was huge, and I almost fainted when I saw that.
And when you say music is not a competition, radio, they say, is not a competition either. But tonight is the People's Choice Awards, and I'm expecting we're going to win Best Talk Show.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
And Lerone is laughing, why?
Well, I'll be watching.
Yeah, I gotta keep my fingers crossed. That one.
So music isn't a competition, but one of the biggest competitions in the world, or mainly for pop music and stuff, is the Grammys.
Right.
Well, there are classical Grammys.
Yeah, there are classical categories.
Too,
yeah, there are.
But a lot of the focus, a lot of the industry is focused on the pop music scene, which is big, and jazz. But we've had bass players that are part of our society. They're Grammy winners. I think of somebody like Christian McBride, who is an amazing player and an even more amazing person, and just a big teddy bear sweetheart. And he's a Grammy winner. But when you meet him and talk to him, he's so just genuine and down to earth. So much fun. We just crack jokes. It's really
and when you say, well, yeah, it's mostly the Pop Awards. Well, the Pop Awards is what makes it impressive.
Right.
That gives it its status. If there weren't those Pop Awards and it was just these separate classical Grammy Awards, it wouldn't mean as much as, well, I've won a Grammy,
Yeah. Well, there's all sorts of music, but pop music is pop for a reason, because it is so appealing to just masses of people, And classical music is, of course, I think it's incredible, but it is a little more complex. And maybe not as immediately appealing to just everybody. But, at the end of the day, everything that we do as musicians, I think our goal is to just connect people heart to heart and mind to mind. because we can create something that is both emotionally heartfelt but also thought-provoking. And I think all good art does that.
I agree.
And, in this day and age when, there's so much craziness going on in the world, it's nice to have something that addresses that, where we can just be humans on that level.
So the piece that we just heard, and I know we're about to hear another one, had I not known, I would have thought that was just a violin.
Yay!
And it's not.
No, that's a bass.
That's a big bass.
Yeah, we can play really high. When you see a bass in a band or an orchestra, usually you'll see them in the lower register in those positions. But when we play solo stuff, we play as high on our instrument as a violin can on their instrument, which means reaching up, our hand moves down towards the floor, goes in that direction. And you practice enough and you can get things right and make it sound as sweet as a violin.
Well, you did.
Thank you. And I think if you're going to play the other piece, then you'll hear how fast also that we can move. It's not.
We're not going to play it right now. We'll do that toward the end of the segment.
That's fine.
In about 5 to 6 minutes. But so when you're playing that way, isn't it hard to hold that big bass under your chin?
The chin rest is really big.
No?
No.
Oh.
I'll give you a lesson. Yes.
What do I know? Do you know what I want to ask you about? Okay, so you came to this country illegally.
No, I came legally. I am Canadian, yes.
Where from?
From Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia.
Originally born in New Brunswick, lived in Toronto, but primarily from Nova Scotia.
Okay, so what I want to know is, did you have trouble getting over the wall?
Well, from Canada, it's an ice wall, so you have to ice pick your way to the top, and then you just ski down the other side. So you just,
that sounds like
you can
fun.
ski, if you ski fast enough, you can get all the way through Vermont into Connecticut.
Oh my God!
So you landed in Connecticut, and how did you end up in Texas?
Well, I did all my undergrad schooling in Connecticut, so I was a little 18-year-old showing up in Connecticut, Yankee, Connecticut. And then after 4 years there, I auditioned for a spot in the New Orleans Philharmonic, which it was called at the time. And it was just a one-year position, which I won, which was great. So I got a job right out of college, but it was just for a year, and I knew that, but I'd always wanted to live in New Orleans. And especially the connection between Nova Scotia and Louisiana, with the Acadians being booted out and moving down being Cajuns, and wanted to follow that line. And Mardi Gras was fabulous. And I lived in the French Quarter.
Wow.
And, as a 22-year-old with a job and living in the Quarter, it was amazing. I can tell you stories off the air.
I bet you could.
But it was great. New Orleans is a great city, amazing. But that was just for a year. So then I spent another year after that kind of spinning my wheels. I went back to Canada. And then I started back in Connecticut, the University of Hartford, the Hart School of Music, or Hart College of Knowledge, as we called it. And I was a grad assistant, so I helped my teacher with teaching, and I did that for 2 years. When he left, I left, and there was another year floating around. And he knew I was auditioning and trying to find a job, so this is where the networking comes in, because I was trying auditions and competitions and, just trying to find my way. And I got a phone call, and they said, you want a job in West Texas? Our bass teacher left. We need somebody last minute, teaching at the university, playing principal in the symphony. And I said, sure, why not? And at the time, it was a one-year job. And I remember saying, yes, I would love to. And then I was like, what did he say? I know it's a Texas city, but it wasn't Austin. But so maybe it's near Austin. Maybe it's like Austin. No. But on the other hand, it ended up being a 12-year gig.
And for anybody who doesn't know where West Texas State University is, it's like 30 miles south of Amarillo.
About 15, Canyon, the city of Canyon, Texas, up near the Palo Duro Canyon, which is why it's called Canyon.
Suburb of Amarillo.
Canyon is a southern suburb. It's kind of the metroplex of the Texas Panhandle. So,
had you ever been to Texas at all prior to that?
I've been to Texas prior to that, but not Amarillo.
Gotcha.
And I remember driving across the country, and I got to Oklahoma City, and I got past Oklahoma City, and I went, where are the trees? Why did the sky get really big all of a sudden? And, oh my goodness, you can see forever. It's kind of flat. And I spent 12 years there, and I actually really enjoyed it because it was a chance to really build up my resume. But I got a lot of experience teaching, both classroom as well as private bass.
And you played here in a quartet, quintet?
It was a chamber orchestra.
Chamber orchestra.
Yeah.
Dallas Chamber Orchestra.
Dallas Chamber Orchestra. And I met people that were involved with that. And, you start, like, when I won the competition, at that time, I was living in Amarillo and teaching there. So that gave me a little notoriety, and then I made some contacts through that. And, again, you can wave that feather going, I won this competition. And people say, well, you must be pretty good. So you can, get jobs, get gigs here and there. It's a lot of networking and that kind of thing.
And I'd have you tell the story of how you met Bud, your husband, but we can't say those things on the air.
Oh, well, no, we can, because we met at a food court in the mall, the big mall in Amarillo. And it's one of those things, you leave your house one day, and when you least expect it, you meet the love of your life. And here we are, tomorrow will be our 31st anniversary of when we met.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow, I want to grow up to be like that.
And we've been married for 14 and a half years now. Our anniversary is in July. But we always celebrate our January anniversary because that's the only one we could for a long time.
Yeah.
And then when gay marriage became legalized in Canada, we went to Canada and got married. And then it was recognized here, and we'd already been married. So that was great.
Yeah. Where in Canada did you get married?
We got married in Niagara Falls, Ontario.
Oh, nice.
A very small service. My mom came. We kind of did it very quickly. I remember it wasn't much of a proposal. We kind of got into bed one night, and Bud looked at me and said, so we're going to do this? And I went, yeah, I'll call and make the arrangements. We'd been together 16 years already. It was like, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to play something else that you've recorded. This is on your CD, Sonatas by Frank and Shostakovich.
It says our Frank, yes.
Frank. I think it's Frank.
Frank. You say potato, I say potato.
There you go.
I say Frank. Frank and Shostakovich.
You say tomato, I say tomato.
So this one is by Shostakovich. It's Allegro.
Oh, yes.
Tell us what it is.
Is it the second movement?
It's the
second movement. Oh, yeah. Allegro. It's originally for cello. I like to borrow from other instruments. I say borrow, so they might stay steel. So this is a transcription from the original for cello and piano.
I like the ones that you borrowed from the flute.
Yes, I play flute music too.
And, okay, so Allegro, ready?
This is Valletta Lil, and I listen to Lambda Weekly. I hope that you will too.
And this is Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with Lerone Landis, and the late Patti Fink is in Austin. She'll be back with us next week. Our guest is David Murray. He is the director of the School of Music at Butler University and a virtuoso bass player.
Thank you.
And you've been living in this country now, so for how long? We were talking a little bit about
Oh, gosh. Well, longer than I'm Canadian originally, so longer though that I've ever lived in Canada. I did my 4 years of schooling, undergrad here, and 2 years of grad work, a year in New Orleans, and now I'm over 30 years teaching college.
And so you've had your green card for years.
For a year and a half, roughly. It'll be 2 years this coming May.
Because you're too lazy to get it.
Well, that might be the case, but not for me.
Yeah, this is an amazing story for people who think, all the controversies about, illegal aliens coming over. It's not just, you come over here and the next day you get your green card. Not at all.
There's a process, and I understand the process because I've been involved with it. Of course, coming in as a student, that's a different visa altogether. And on my student visa, I couldn't work. And of course, as a student, I really didn't have time anyway. I was practicing when I wasn't in class. So, when I was in New Orleans, I was on an H-1 visa. It was just a one-year position, and so that lasted for a year. When I was at West Texas, I started on an H-1, and there was a lawyer that didn't know what he was doing because he was going to try to do the green card, but he had no clue what was going on. So I dumped him, and I started doing a one-year visa with that's a product of NAFTA. And so if I was teaching college in the States, I could apply for this, and I had to renew it every year. But it was, no term limit on it. And then it became every 3 years. Well, the reason I couldn't apply for a green card, one, is that it's very expensive if you go through your employer. And at the time, Bud and I weren't married yet, and then even when we were married, it wasn't recognized here, so he couldn't be my sponsor, which is a lot less costly option. And also being HIV positive, somewhere that popped up in all of this. But the first George Bush said that anybody who's HIV positive cannot get a green card. You cannot get permanent status. Obama overturned that, and by the time that came around, also the Supreme Court said that, basically told the country, get over it, same-sex marriage is fine. And so Bud and I started, filing our joint tax returns, and I went, if we can do this green card thing, we didn't do it right away because he was dealing with cancer, so once that was in remission, I said, yeah, let's do this and let's go through the process. I found a really good immigration lawyer and checked off all the boxes, and about 7 months later I got my green card in the mail, and I remember opening it up and just staring at it for like 10 minutes. I couldn't move.
Wow.
Because I went, wow, it's taken like 30 years to get to this point. And I was legal before that, but I didn't feel there was no permanence in it. Right. And, obviously I've been living in this country for a long time and, put in a lot. So having the green card just is the only thing I really can't do is vote. But I can go for citizenship and I can be dual, which is great.
So you're the reason that Trump is president because you didn't vote.
Oh, yeah, it's all on my shoulders. It was just the one vote. Yes. Remember, Hillary won the popular vote?
But you're from Indiana, which Pence won.
So...
Do we have to remind him of that?
Yes, we do. So why did you let Pence become vice president?
I didn't. All over town, there were signs that said, Pence must go. This is when he was being governor, and he was not reelected, and all of a sudden he winds up in the White House, and we went, we didn't mean go there. It's like, no.
So remind us why Pence has been a champion for the gay community for a long time.
Oh, as I think I'm gagging. So that was ridiculous. He pushed this agenda through Religious Freedom Act in Indiana,
which we have coming up this session in the legislature. Even
though the mayor of Indianapolis, who at the time was Republican, said, Governor Pence, this is probably not going to be good for us. This is not going to be good for business, for people coming to our state with conventions, because Indianapolis does a lot of convention traffic. And even so, he pushed it through, and then it basically, everybody went crazy, and they came back and did a bunch of amendments to it. But it basically was saying that it would be okay to discriminate based on religious feelings. So especially people in the gay community could be just thrown out of restaurants or refused service somewhere. The whole, wedding cake fiasco thing, we've seen that happen in a couple of places. And so it's crazy. I mean, just being able to let people discriminate openly.
Right, so he was not going to get reelected, and then he's all of a sudden on the ticket to become vice president.
And, it was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Just, I can't believe they're doing this. And, anyway.
And for people who are not from Indiana, you had no idea what it's like for the gay community there. We have some friends who relocated from Dallas to Indianapolis about 6-7 years ago, and they say it's actually okay.
It's not, Indianapolis itself is pretty good. I mean, we feel pretty safe. I've never felt harmed or threatened there. And Butler, even when I started at Butler, it was a little more conservative school. But I think like a lot of college campuses around the country, being gay is kind of cool. So it's not really been an issue. It's never been an issue for me and my employers. So I'm not really worried about that. And being now the director of the School of Music, I think for any of our gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual students, or questioning anybody like that, it's like you are in a safe place here. And I think that's really good for them to see. I don't hide the fact that I am gay, and I talk about my husband. He's met a lot of my students. I mean, how can I hide?
I was going to say,
you should.
There are some people who can hide it, like Josh here.
I've never tried that, but it's funny. When I taught at West Texas, after my first year, one of my colleagues pulled me aside and she said, "Oh yeah, you should be a little bit careful. Maybe you want to butch it up." And I went, "Oh honey, I'm not changing who I am. You take it as it is, or that's that." And I never got any threatening. But it's like I'm not changing who I am just because somebody's stereotype.
Right.
It's like no. You got me the way you got me. But a lot of people, after the first couple of years, they were like, "Oh, they're like, he's openly gay, but it's okay. Everybody knows him and likes him." And you keep your private life private, and you treat professionals in a professional way.
Right.
So that's all we're asking. I mean,
well, speaking of you being butch, we can't leave the show without mentioning that the Dallas Cowboys won last night.
And the Colts won yesterday afternoon.
The
too.
Indianapolis Indianapolizers.
I was disappointed in both games. I'm a huge Houston fan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
And I'm not.
We kind of trounced you, but it's okay.
Well, maybe the Indianapolis Indianapolizers or whatever will play the Cowboys in the Stupid Bowl.
Oh, that would be fun. It'd be fun to see Andrew Luck going against.
Yeah, that is possible.
I always get Tony Romo.
Tony Romo doesn't play anymore.
Okay, he's not doing it anymore.
No.
And he's all about ribs, I think, anyway. Oh, it's Tony Romo.
I got it.
Oh, yeah, well, we had to butch it up.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Enough of that.
Oh, my God.
Totally thrown it. This is one of the first times I've seen you speechless. So
Yeah, no, never. It's more I don't have my glasses on. So, new Congress.
Yes.
New legislature. I'm going down to see the legislature sworn in. It's really exciting. We have 5 lesbians being sworn into the legislature. You must have some LGBT people in your legislature as well.
as far as I know, the first openly gay man got elected to the Indiana State House, whatever, all the details. I have to bone up on all those, the
There are only
verbiage for my
3 states left. And again, Lerone before the show reminded me that I forgot to look up which 3. There are only 3 states left that don't have any LGBT members in their legislature.
Even Indiana does now, so that's big.
Well, and Texas.
Yeah.
Kansas selected 2.
Right.
Plus 1 to Congress. So, I mean, politically, we've made lots of strides here. And it makes a difference because you were talking about the RFRA law that Pence pushed through. It's harder for legislators to vote on something when the person sitting next to me is gay. It just is harder to pass that kind of thing.
Right.
When we have 5 and they're spread out throughout the House chamber, becomes even harder.
Yeah.
So,
I'm hoping things don't go the way they did in Indiana, and people just are like, no, this bill is not good for anybody.
So yeah. Government shutdown.
So what are we going on, day 15, 16?
Yeah, it's, I think, day 16. Second week. You're flying today.
I'm flying today.
A whole bunch of people from TSA are calling in late. You need to get to the airport.
I'll get
nice
to the
and
airport
early.
at a decent time.
Not calling in late. They're just calling in sick. They're not coming in at all.
And I haven't had a problem so far. I mean, I flew to Canada for a few days and back, and then flew down here Friday, and not a problem. But yeah, I'm not going to take a chance today. I'm going to be at the airport early.
But when you were flying here from Canada, that was Canadian security.
That was Canadian security, so that wasn't a problem. But and of course, I went through customs and immigration in Halifax, because when you leave most Canadian airports to fly directly to the States, you go through customs there.
Right.
So that was convenient.
But they're saying now that we've passed a pay period and they're in their second pay period of not getting paid, how is that legal? I know a lawsuit was filed to force the government to pay them, that it isn't legal to force somebody to work
For free. Yeah.
Or to not pay them in a timely manner.
Right.
Even all of that's illegal. Why does the government get away with that?
We live in strange times.
I know the Trump is holding the government hostage.
So before the show, we asked David if we could borrow Justin Trudeau. He said no.
Or if you do, you have to treat him really gently.
We'll treat him really gently.
Oh, I bet.
So good news this week. Country number 26 legalized same-sex marriage. That's Austria.
Austria, not Australia.
Good.
Well, Australia was country 25, I believe. They just legalized last year.
I thought one came after that.
Oh, possibly.
One of the Caribbean countries.
Well, Bermuda.
Yeah, that's right.
Bermuda allowed.
And then they reversed it.
They reversed it.
Yeah.
Then it got reversed again. They have a long appeals process in Bermuda. Because one of the plaintiffs for the Bermuda case lives here in Dallas now.
Oh, okay.
He worked on Jeffrey Payne's campaign when Jeffrey was running for governor. That's how I met him. But Bermuda allowed it and disallowed it. Now they allowed it again. And you're right, that was after Australia.
But now Austria.
Yeah. Okay,
Wow.
now, this is a story you've been following. Kevin Hart, Ellen has pissed off a whole bunch of the gays.
She really has. Long story short, she had him on her show, Kevin Hart, the comedian, who got into some trouble for some old tweets that resurfaced, some homophobic tweets that resurfaced. He stepped down from the Oscars, just to keep you up to speed. She had him on the show to kind of give his side of the story, but what people are upset about with Ellen is she really didn't challenge him on any questions. She just let him speak, uninterrupted for about 6 minutes, and he kind of played the victim, how, somebody intentionally looked these tweets up and just to kind of get at him, and how this was a big moment for him in his career, and it, took that away from him. But Ellen has challenged the Academy. She has personally written letters to them saying she wants him to host. So a lot of people are upset about that. It's like, and both of them, were saying, well, he's already apologized. Well, he kind of hasn't. Don Lemon did a great piece on this on CNN, and he brought up the point that I had been asking: where are these apologies that he supposedly gave years ago, shortly after the tweets? And nobody can find them. The closest thing that they found, and again, this is Don Lemon with CNN. He used their sources. They couldn't find anything. The closest thing that they found was an interview that Kevin Hart gave with the Rolling Stone. And he said that he was no longer going to do gay jokes because it was a sensitive issue. Basically, because we're too sensitive, he won't do those jokes anymore.
Okay, here's what I have against that. I'm not sensitive about gay jokes.
I'm not either against good ones.
So, okay, so it was a bad joke. You know what? So jokes fall flat. These weren't jokes. These were homophobic rants, like talking about how he'd kill his kid before letting him grow up gay.
Yeah.
What was the punchline there?
Yeah.
That's violence.
Yeah.
That's just, yeah,
well,
exactly.
and then, talking about him apologizing, did he apologize because he realized they were bad, or did he only start apologizing when they said you can't host the Oscars?
They initially
can't find evidence that he did before.
Right. Initially,
he apologized.
He said he apologized years ago, and nobody can find proof of that.
Yeah.
So when this new fiasco came up, the Oscars gave him the choice. They said, you're going to need to apologize or step down. He refused to apologize initially and stepped down. So yeah, so I don't know. I'm
and
Ellen doesn't
Ellen,
speak for the entire gay community, and that's what everyone's trying to point out.
And on Ellen, he kind of apologized again.
He did, but it's the way he has handled this whole thing does not sound genuine to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, so if he's the host, would you watch?
I don't know if I was going to watch in the first place.
And would you, David?
Well, I might like to see. We usually DVR and fast forward through boring parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I would not watch it because of him. And the thing is, prior to this, I was a Kevin Hart fan. He's actually kind of funny.
I didn't know any of this, before, and I thought he was kind of funny and stuff like that. It does taint things a little bit when you hear about that in his past, and how he's dealt
precisely,
with it. It's kind of
precisely. That's what kind of
and
turned
the other
it.
part is, I'm not advocating boycott the.
No, me either.
I'm just asking, would you watch it?
No, I would not watch it because he was hosting. No.
I mean, and the thing with the Oscars, I've not seen all the movies, so it's only when it's a movie that I have seen that it's like, oh, see if they win in this category or whatever. So.
David, we are out of time.
David, it was so nice to have you on. It's so nice to meet you.
Thank you.
This is the first piece on the first CD that you gave me.
Yes.
And what is this? It's playing in the background.
This is the Allegro di Bravura. The Allegro alla Mendelssohn, by Giovanni Bottesini, who was a 19th century Italian bass virtuoso.
favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call.